So once again, I welcome you all to this very special 133rd session of Leadership Talks. As you know that these sessions are being organized by India International Education Council and School Lalaji Solutions. India International Education Council is a not-for-profit organization which is working in the field of education. We have collaborators from 12 countries. India International Education Council aims to create a better world through education. It is also building quality centers for elementary education approachable for all kids, finding best educational practices across the globe and find ways to implement those in Indian institutions, creating more awareness on hygiene and learning disabilities. It is also creating, as I said, awareness programs on hygiene and learning disabilities. It publishes a magazine called World Education Review and many other educational reports. It aims to build 100 chapters in different cities by 2022. It will soon open its membership for institutions and individuals. It also imparts training for leaders, teachers, students, and parents. As you know that this is our 133rd session. We have so far successfully conducted 132 sessions. We have received 15,578 registrations, 14,397 questions. We have seen participation from 5 countries: India, USA, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Nepal. From India, we have seen participation from 22 states and 102 cities. We aim to organize minimum 200 sessions. With this, we would be reaching out to 100,000 educators, 20,000 institutions, and 1,000 plus eminent speakers like today's speakers would be joining us to share their perspective and thoughts on national education policy. Now, I would request you all, please join me in welcoming our key speakers for this very special session. Our first key speaker, a very senior education leader, Kalpana Singh ji. Kalpana ma'am is principal with the Gurukul Academy, Lucknow, Uttar Pradesh. She did her schooling from Girls La Martiniere College, Lucknow. After having done her B.Ed, she started teaching, from a well-known City Montessori group of institution, which is Asia's largest school in a particular city. She has been working as principal of Gurukul Academy, which is a CISCE affiliated ICSE school since 1991 for almost 31 years. So that's truly remarkable, Kalpana ma'am. She was elected secretary of UP Association in 2000 for a year, as she moved as a founder principal of current school Gurukul Academy 2000 in 2001. Since last 8 years, she has been working as the executive member of the association of UP and Uttarakhand. And in 2018, she was elected vice president of the association. We welcome you, Kalpana ma'am. Thank you for
Thank you.
joining. Honor to have you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Welcome, ma'am. Our next speaker, another senior education leader, Vinita Puri ma'am. Vinita ji is principal with Nalanda's Gurukul School, Pune, Maharashtra. She has 18 years of teaching and academic administration experience with CBSE and SSC schools. And she's a leader who can boost the morale of the teaching staff and work in unison with the team for the progress of the school. She is focused on excellent results and reputation of the school in academics, sports, and cultural activities. She possesses the ability to handle classes from pre-primary to secondary section. She has done Masters in Education from Pune University. She has also done Diploma in School Management from Yashwantrao Chavan University. She's also done Bachelor in Education from Meerut University. She has also worked as a principal with the Jog English Medium High School, Mayur Colony, and she has been awarded as Best District Principal by Olympiad Science Foundation. We welcome you, Vinita ma'am. Thank you for joining. It's an honor to have you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. It's a pleasure here.
Welcome, ma'am. We are honored with your presence. I'll come back to you. Our next speaker, Indu Kapoor ji. Indu ma'am is principal with the RFG International School, Jammu and Kashmir. She's a person who joined education sector not by choice but by chance, but got so passionate about towards the job that now it has been 10 years working in the sector. She started her career as a kindergarten teacher with hard work, passion, and dedication. We welcome you, Indu ma'am. Thank you for joining. It's an honor to have you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Welcome, ma'am. And our last key speaker, another very senior EdTech leader, Jaswinder Singh ji. Jaswinder ji is the founder and CEO of Wordsworth ELT. Jaswinder sir has an experience of 30 years in the field of education and technology and has also served as a consultant to UNESCO and education. Wordsworth English Lab is designed for India and is highly research initiative of the ActUNF Group. It is a trusted education company with 2 decades of service in technology, education, and training. Its expertise in technology, multimedia, and content development has been instrumental in presenting a world-class language lab solution for academia in India. In a short span of time, Wordsworth English Language Lab has managed considerable recognition across the country for its unique content and methodology. Over 3,000 installations in institutions across the country stand testimony of the quality in product, implementation, training, and continual service provided by ActUnit and its committed network of dealers. We welcome you, Jaswinder sir. Thank you for joining. It's an honor to have you.
Thank you, Rajulji. Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Welcome, sir. So with this, we come to the next part of our session, which is the opening remark part. I would request all our key speakers if we can have your quick 1 minute opening remark. Then I'll come back to you for your main talk, and then we'll go to the open house part. So I would request first Kalpana ma'am, if we can have your quick 1 minute opening remark.
A very good afternoon to all of you. And thank you for having me here on the forum. I think no matter what our experience, but we are always learners. And therefore, more than contributing, I'm going to look forward to a lot of information that is going to come through from all our members who are here on board, and hope that I'll go back better informed. When we talk about national education policy, this was something which was long awaited. As we all know that the first national education policy came up in the year 1968, which was presented by the Kothari Commission. And that was about 20 years after independence. And the need at that time in terms of education was very, very different. We were looking for more of literacy than education, as we call it today. It was more important that all our people in the country would know the reading, writing skills and would be able to call themselves as literate, would be able to read, would be able to write. But as of now, the need is very, very different. Though after that, we had another policy which came up in the year 1986, which was further renewed in 1992. But if we talk about it, that seeing the changing time, seeing the technological development, the science has taken us, I think, literally to stars. But then we have not been able to give so much stress to our education system, which should have been there. So I'm glad that finally, people realize that education, which is the most important segment of any country, that has been laid stress on. And finally, what has come forth is something that, though it came with a lot of apprehensions, but we are also looking forward to a lot of great changes that would come in and which would make our people, as our country is progressing today and is being recognized internationally, the same way, even in terms of education, will be recognized and looked up to, which we already, of course, because of age-old science and knowledge that we had, we were looked up. Once again, we'll be looked up in terms of education. Also, people will turn to us to draw out things from us. For this education policy, as we all know, it has been in the pipeline since 2015. But it was only.
Kalpana ma'am, I'll come back to you for detailed remarks, the opening remark part. So,
all right.
So, I would request, please conclude your thought. I'll come back to you for detailed perspective.
So, coming back, I mean, we would just rather discuss on each of the points in detail and try to gather information so that we are able to be prepared to implement and execute it properly once it comes back to us. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity, and we'll proceed with.
Thank you, ma'am. We all are very excited to hear your ideas, your wisdom, your perspective on this policy. I'll be coming back to you after this for a detailed perspective.
Thank you.
Now I would request Vinita Puri ma'am, if we can have your quick 1 minute opening remark. You are on mute, ma'am.
Very good afternoon to all the people present out here. It's an honor to be the part of this forum and contribute a bit of my views to this new education policy. As Kalpana ma'am very rightly commented that we have been looking forward for the new education policy and the reforms to be welcomed in this education sector. As per what I think about the new education policy is that it is going to bring out the tremendous changes in this education system, which we really look upon. And I hope that through this session, I'll get to learn something and we'll be able to have a very fruitful session today. So thank you very much.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you, Vinita ma'am, for that. I'll be coming back to you for your detailed perspective. Now, I would request Indu Kapoorji, Indu ma'am, if we can have your opening remark.
Good afternoon. Am I audible?
You're audible, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. At the onset, kindly accept my heartfelt gratitude for giving me the opportunity to be a part of the much talked about topic of the year 2020, that is National Education Policy. My congratulations to Team Schoolalaji and India International Education Council for organizing. I believe this is the longest series of webinars on national education
Yes.
policy, and I wish and hope that it should enter Guinness Book of World Record.
Oh, wow.
And as it is
Great.
said that everything happens for a reason, so I guess this policy came at a very right time when the whole world was, came to a standstill because of the pandemic. It gave a lot of time to all the stakeholders to introspect it. Had it been came at a different point of time, so maybe the things would be different. This is my personal viewpoint. As a part of educational fraternity, it gives me immense pleasure when the prospective parents coming to the school these days, admissions are going on in all the schools, and the parents are asking, even if they are coming from the rural background, are you incorporating national education policy in your curriculum? So this is a very, very welcoming step as well as a challenging task. When the aim or the goal is high, we need to double our efforts. No doubt, somewhere it seems impossible, sometimes it seems challenging. But I guess if all the stakeholders join hands together, then nothing would stop India from becoming global knowledge superpower and Indians to become truly global citizens. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you, Indu ma'am. In fact, many educators in the previous session have also shared similar views that this policy has a potential to place India at that coveted position of Vishwa Gyan Guru. So I'll be coming back to you. Now I would request Jaswinder Singh sir, sir, you bring altogether different perspective. You are from a technology background. You look at education from a different perspective, this policy from a different perspective. So if we can have your opening remark.
Yeah, thank you, Rajulji, and good afternoon, everybody. See, as Rajulji has introduced me, I come from an EdTech background where we work with technology and education. So, what I think that this policy is a very welcoming, disruptive policy. Welcoming because this is needed, everybody wants it. Disruptive is going to make a lot of changes, and we should all be ready to implement it the way most of the panelists have spoken, that everything is in how we implement onto that. So I'm going to talk on how the impossible can be made possible with the use of technology, because we are talking about inclusive education. That means we are talking about education taken to the remotest part of the country. So that's inclusive. It is not only the kind of people, it's also the geographical inclusion is one important that we are talking about. Second thing, since I come from the language background, we work with language and we work with some 3,000 schools in India for enhancing language skills. I am going to talk about the changes that NEP has brought in into language, bringing in the local language or the mother tongue as the initial language of instruction, and then the 3 language formula, and how is it that we're going to implement that. So my total focus is going to be on these things, but technology being the background of this. Thank you. I look forward to the second part of the session. Thank you, Raj.
Thank you, Jaswinder sir, for sharing that. And I'll come back to you. So with this, we come to the next part of the session, which is the main talk session. I'll be coming back to all our speakers, all our key speakers. All the speakers will get 8 to 10 minutes to share their perspective. But before I invite our first speaker, Kalpana ma'am, I would like to share the learnings which we have had during our last 132 sessions. During our last these 132 sessions, almost every speaker, every participant shared that this is a wonderful document. This document has a potential to place India at that coveted position of Vishwa Gyan Guru, which Indu ma'am just said. But at the same time, almost same number of participants shared that this is going to be very, very difficult to execute. Many people shared the example of CCE. A lot of people said that financial, area is going to be key concern. The lack of finances. A lot of people said that teachers training is going to hurt us most. Many people believe that yes, teachers training is concern area, but the bigger concern area is the lack of intent among teachers to get trained. A lot of people said that this pandemic has exposed how poor distribution we have in our country for digital infrastructure. So that is going to be another concern area. Many educators who participated shared that good schools in urban areas already implementing many of these ideas, but the biggest challenge would be for the rural schools, budget schools, and the government schools. So with that thought, I would request all our speakers that while sharing your perspective, your ideas, your suggestions, if you can also share some best practice which you are implementing in your school, so that we all can learn from each other, and then this session become more useful and interactive. So I would request, with that thought, I would request Kalpana ma'am, if you can have your ideas, your thoughts in detail. And I'm just making a rough guess here. Please correct me if I'm wrong. We have people from, I would say three, I would say 3 generations here, right? So Kalpana ma'am, I believe you started your journey when the 1986 policy was launched, and I believe Vinita ma'am, you joined some years later when that some kind of alteration was done in 90s. And Indu ma'am, I believe as I just went through your profile that you joined when that 2005 alteration was done to the policy. And Swinder sir is here, who has been observing the entire thing. So
You have taken chance to tell us that we are growing old, but
We
I
are
think we
growing.
are gracefully growing old. So this gracefulness is what we are going to keep with us. Thank you, Rajulji.
We've seen all the changes.
Absolutely.
That's why we, call ourselves more fortunate, because we've seen those times when we were following the traditional pattern, and we've seen the technology taking over in today's pandemic time, when the teachers had to completely go through a changeover in their methodology. And we are further going to see a change wherein a lot of new things would come in with the implementation of this new technology, new education policy that's going to come in. When I look at it, if I talk about myself, what really drew my attention was the fact that at least we have been able to move away from that rote system of learning which had been prevalent for so long. So coming to this 5+3+3+4 breakup that they have given, and they have removed that 10+2 age-old policy that was there. At least they have brought in the preschool years, which was so important, which was going neglected for a while, because when we were talking about 10+2, it was actually class 1 onwards that we were counting. And with now everybody being a little alert about sending their child and talking about early education and sending their child early to school, I think it's 3 years is the right age where a child enters the school, and we cannot ignore that age group. There were 2-3 points, which I really liked. Of course, when you're talking about apprehensions, there are many. Rightly, of course, whether the teachers would be trained or not, how equipped are the schools, and above all, have the publications been, trained for giving us material enough to be able to teach on those lines. So we are something is being handed over to us where we are completely raw and we are completely ignorant. But definitely, nothing happens overnight. We'll have to give it time, and it has to be a gradual process that will happen. But once we are able to implement and we are able to, equip ourselves rightly for this policy, I think it is really going to do wonders, because it is adding in a lot of technology. Mr. Jaswinder Singh would know that, we cannot now have education without technology being an integral part of it. So with that coming in, I think there's a lot of hope for future, because our children need to be trained with these kind of latest developments and the latest technique to be able to stand in the world scenario and say we are at par with everyone, which of course our children are no less even now. But somewhere when we see the examination pattern also, we realize that we are still following and we are still testing rather the rote method. And therefore, are we really moving in that concept-based kind of teaching? So one, that we are talking about early childhood education, where the youngsters and the tiny tots have been brought into the mainstream. Secondly, a very important component that attracted me was the vocational education. All of us being in school and being educators, we have seen that it is a point does come in for many children where they are not able to move ahead with the stream specification that is given to them, and they may not be equally good in every subject. Like we say that till class 10 you have to study this subject and you have to move ahead with that. And but it is since we have different IQ level, children are there with different IQ level, many of them are not able to cope up with certain subjects. So one very important thing that has been done in this policy, has been taken care of in this policy, is that they have given that wide range of subject where subject specification or stream specification has been overruled rather, and the child will be able to take up any subject from any stream and move ahead upon depending upon his or her choice. This was one major thing that attracted my attention. Secondly, when we talk about vocational education, as I was mentioning, also at certain points we've seen, not maybe so much in the cities, but maybe in the rural areas, after maybe class 8, the children are not allowed to go to school anymore, and especially with girls, they feel that okay, now the girl needs to sit at home and maybe learn the household chores and then wait for her marriage. But I think with this in mind, where even if there are economic constraints and the child is not able to move ahead, the vocational training which they have incorporated after class 6, the child will be able to move out after that vocational training that the child has had in a more equipped manner to take up some profession. Even after class 12, if the child decides to take up a certain profession, at least the child will be more equipped. Then those who are moving out for further studies, they also are getting a larger scope, because even in the higher sector also, I mean in the higher classes also, the government has taken care of. So where they are, they have this system of entering into the undergraduate and graduate courses, and if the child for some reason or the student for some reason is not able to take it up, then at least they have this option of wherever they have left to come back to that. I think, as I understood, I may be wrong, but I mean, that was what my understanding about this policy was. So I felt that, though this whole policy has been delayed, but all the factors have been taken into account. And as we read about it, the more we read about it, that they have taken the problems that are faced by Anganwadi schools. They have gone to the grassroots level of going to rural areas, to districts, to city level, wherever the problems are. Then from all age group, right from preschool to the master's level, every level has been taken care of. And even where we talk about the professional institutes and the professional colleges like IITs and other such organizations, they have tried to bridge that gap of school and the higher education. So there are a lot of important points that where we were missing out, and our children there were a lot of dropout cases, because even when we read about that, our dropout cases in India is a very large number as compared to other cities. I was like stressing on vocational education. I also found that, though in our ICSE system, vocational education is there. I'm sure it must be there in CBSE as well. But how many takers do we have for that? In schools, normally people prefer that, well, the child has to be an engineer, the child has to be a doctor. And now with commerce stream coming up, they say, okay, well, the child will go into the banking sector and so on. But when we talk about vocational training, of course, the schools will have to shell out a lot of money and be prepared. The financial constraints would be there initially, but gradually I'm sure everybody would be on their feet to be able to manage that. But look at the amount of benefit that those children who do not want to struggle with the mainstream, they get an option to move to this and thereby have a secure future, which is so important. At the end of it, all education has to lead to that. So there are these certain points which I think are very, very relevant, and maybe it will take some time. It's taken a lot of time for the policy to be, to be thrashed out, to be brainstormed by right people who were there, and then finally be tabled. So it's there for execution, and execution will definitely in such a large country not happen overnight. We'll have to give it time, we'll have to be patient, and we'll all have to contribute. Yes, one point, as you rightly mentioned about teachers training, that's been my major apprehension as well, that are our teachers equipped? But then I think the pandemic time has given me the answer, because we have all seen our teachers really learn and get absolutely high-tech during this time. And trust me, there are teachers I have teachers who are even of my age and even a couple of years older to me. I have seen them learn everything possible to take online classes. I have seen them that they have equipped themselves and how everybody rose to the occasion to train them. The staff within came up, the computer teachers and the teachers who were more savvy to train these teachers. I think it was something which literally gave me goosebumps, and it gives me goosebumps every time I talk about it. It was something where we really need to appreciate our teachers the way they have worked. Everybody's appreciated the doctors and the police, but I'm sorry, we have been neglected somewhere. So it is the education sector that needs to be appreciated as well for the hard work. So seeing that, I would come back to my point that there's a lot of hope. Our teachers also have immense, ability to learn. Gradually, as things would come in, we are hopeful that they will also equip themselves, and we will definitely be able to put across and execute things in a proper manner. So that is what I have to say about it. Thank you so much. I don't know if my inputs have been of any, relevance here, but there are things which I'm very, very hopeful about. And all issues do have teething problems. Let's face those teething problems and move ahead and look forward to a brighter future, because this policy basically aims at making our citizens equipped, making our citizens technologically higher so that they are able to stand out in the world and take pride in what they have gathered. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Big thanks, Kalpana ma'am. We all agree with you. You talked about the important highlights from NEP. You said how this 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4 system is going to create an impact. You also talked about and you shared your assessment. This NEP has a potential to take that rote learning system away from our education system, and it would, create a capacity building. I would say a competitive based education system. You also talked about that flexibility in terms of choosing subjects, is one of the major positive development which has come with this policy. We also talked about the importance of vocational education and how it is going to create more employable learners from our conventional education system. You also talked about, where NEP is covering all aspects of education ecosystem, and it is empowering each of those institutions and systems. You also talked about that execution is going to be key, and you called upon all the educators that it demands that collaborative approach in order to get successfully executed. So big thanks, Kalpana ma'am, for sharing these wonderful and strong ideas. I'll be coming back to you with questions. Thank you, ma'am. Now I would request Vinita ma'am, if we can have your ideas.
Sure, sir. Thank you so much. I would like to put through my ideas through a PPT presentation that I have prepared. Like most of the points that I'll be talking to you about have been taken up by ma'am already, but still I will just like to just put away my points. Now, when this new education policy is implemented, the government have taken care not only of the middle class man, the people like the common man who are facing the problems. They have considered the working class people. They have also considered the problems that the people living in the remote areas are facing. And very rightly said by Endu ma'am that the policy is introduced at the very right time, when the people have accepted it and will be accepting it because of this pandemic situation, right? We have faced so many problems during this pandemic situation, and we have learned a lot from this. So like coming back to those points, like I'll be talking about it later. First, I'll just put through my ideas of the new education policy that I have gone through. The first thing that I have seen in this is that now the schooling will be starting from the age of 3 years. Now, this is something like really good that I have seen. Initially, what was happening? Hello?
Yes, you're audible, ma'am, but your
Yes,
presentation has stopped.
Okay, sir. I'll just take care of that. Yeah, that the schooling from the age of 3 years. Now, see, initially, like what was happening, that the child was admitted to the school at the age of 6 years, right? And till 3 years, the children were going to some of the preschools here and there, where they all had a different set of education system. Like they all were just imparting the education to those growing minds in their own ways, like as in how they felt like doing it. But by implementing this policy, this new education education policy, where we are going to have 5+3+3+4 system, I think that these things will be streamlined. Now the question is that why it was necessary for the government to bring these 3-year-old children to the school level. Now if we look at the policy, we find that these are the foundational years of the child development. Right now we say that 85% of the child's cumulative brain, it developed during this age, like this age of around 6 years, right? And it is very important for us to stimulate their brain, okay, to give them the right direction, which this policy will be helping us to do, right? So these 5 years till the age of 8 years, which is considered as the foundational age of the child, will be helping us to develop the growing brains, right? We will be able to help them learn better and give them the good direction. Now I will talk about the early childhood development care and education over this time, which is very important for us to achieve during this period. Then coming to the preparatory age, which is like from class 3 to 5. Now here the government have stressed that during this period the child should be able to read and write properly. Like if here, of course, the children who are there in the cities, they are doing that. The parents are giving us the great support over here to groom our children and to make them literate. But then when we talk of the remote areas, right, here the government have given it a really good thought that the people living in the villages should be able to read and write. Read and write means they should able to understand the English, they should able to understand the arithmetic operations which they can use in their day-to-day life. And then as per the new education policy, what I have understood is that from the age of 11 years, that is from 6 years onwards, which is considered as the middle age, like here the government have introduced which the vocational courses, like where the child will not only do the academic learning but also will be going beyond that. Okay, it will help him to develop his choice, it will help him to look ahead with the different professions. And then comes the secondary education system, where we have the classes from 9 to 12. Now here if we look at the curriculum of the, you can say, the state curriculums. Now being in Maharashtra, we have a very different system of education here. Like if we look at the state board schools, till 10th we consider it as the part of a school, and then 11th and 12th over here is considered as the junior college, where the students are out from the school, okay, and they go to a different world, right? They go to the different colleges, and then they are asked to choose as we know, for the science, commerce or the arts stream. But then bringing all this together, okay, as a part of the school education will really help us. So this is something good that I have liked about this education policy. Then one more thing which I was like, when I was going through it, I liked about the concept of Bal Bhavan that the government have talked about. Now we know that today most of the parents are working and they have to leave their kids somewhere in the crèche, or like they are left unattended till the time they come back home after the school. So this concept of Bal Bhavan, which the government have requested the state governments to take care, is something really good and innovative, because over there the child will not be wasting his time. It can be used for some grooming, some of his development. It will be like a boarding school time for him, and he will learn something related to art, or some plays or some games. Like it can be a fruitful time for him to spend till his parents are back to take him home. So this is something appreciated out here. And then, as we have already seen, that from standard 6 the new education policy is talking about the vocational development or the skill education. Now this skill education is today also, it is the part of the CBSE curriculum as introduced 2-3 years back, and we are implementing in the school, where we have lot of skills that can be taught to the children. But again, the constraints are that there are n number of skill education courses which have been given by the government. Okay, now it is not possible for every school to take over it. Again, the question of the expenses come out over here. But yes, the suggestion which has been given by the government is really fruitful, and it will help the children. Right now, looking at the new education policy, it gives us lot of you can say lot of courses, like they have given us carpentry, we have given us gardening, they have given us pottery making, or IT, or something in the art. So that is good. That is good that the children will learn something beyond academics in the school. That rote learning, or only the academics and only that day to day affair, like they'll be coming out of it, and they can come together and utilize that time for learning also, and for their grooming also. Another thing that will happen here, as I feel, like, see, we have single child today at our places, right? And they are not having many friends, because half of their day goes in the school, and then they are back home again with the parents. So they are not you can say, they don't get the atmosphere where they can learn to share the things. They can learn to be with their friends, to laugh and to groom. Like you can say, social development of the child is not there. I think that will also be helpful over here. And then what the policy talks about is the 10-day bagless school, which is really good. Like, the students will enjoy coming to the school at this time. They will learn, they'll get to talk to their fellow friends, they will get the guidance from the people who are experts in this field. And so it will not just be learning of some skill, rather it will be the overall development of the child. Okay, which this policy is looking ahead to a great extent. Okay, now we are not looking that the child should only be literate. What we are looking ahead, that there should be the overall development of the child through this education policy. And every point that have been incorporated in this, to a certain extent, take us to that area, take us to that you can say destination, where the overall development of the child can be groomed up. Okay, so this is something nice which we have seen. And then it also talks about that there should be certain labs to be set up in the school, so that the child can have certain skill labs to be developed by the polytechnics or the local industries, so that the children can get the experience of working in these areas. Next thing that I see in this policy and appreciate also is that now there is no rigid separation between the science, arts, or commerce field. Now, this is something like, as a parent, I think, like, as like, my child should be a science graduate, he should be a doctor or an engineer, right? Or he should be a CA, or he should be a CS. We do not think about that whether the child is made for that profession, whether the child is okay looking, like is okay studying the biology or chemistry, or some accounts. Is he comfortable doing that or not? Now, when we have this rigid separation is no more over there, it will help the children to decide what they actually want. Now, see, if under pressure, if I talk about myself, like if I say my child, now you take up science or you take up commerce, I want you to be a chartered accountant, I want you to be a CS, learning or reading those subjects, after 2 or 3 years, no, I don't have any charm in reading it, I'm not interested in it, right? He can always change that. Now we do not have that separation, that no, he should be a child of science or commerce or physics, or if he is reading music, or if he is learning something about art. That is not correct. So no, this education policy have brought everything at par. Now every child can choose his subject, his stream of education on his own. And it will also give some basic education, some cross functional thinking to the child, and basic knowledge about the subject. So that was another, that is something really important, which as an educationist I look ahead for the overall development of the child. Then coming to the board examinations. Now, as a parent or as a teacher, we are always concerned about the board examinations, that no, you have to really work hard, like you have to perform better in the board examinations. And these board examinations, like while preparing for this, what we think, rote learning should be there. As ma'am rightly said, that this is not going to promote, this education policy will not promote the rote learning at all. And that is the need of the hour. right? Today, the concept of the child should be more clear than learning, than rote learning, and then just writing it down or scribbling on the paper. That is not really necessary. As an educationist, I always talk to my teachers. It is not compulsory, it is not necessary for us to finish with the entire textbook. What is more important is that the concept that we are teaching should be more clear with the child. The child should come up with the queries, the child should come up with the questions, and he should be able to give us the solutions, which we are looking ahead for. And this education policy will be helping us to do that in a better manner. Okay, so board examinations will be talking about the holistic development of the child, okay, the overall development of the child, and no, you can say no rote learning will be there any further. Then while going through this policy, I also came across a new national assessment center, that is PARAK, that is Performance Assessment Review and Analysis of Knowledge for Holistic Development, which the government is looking ahead to set up for bringing all the examinations or all the assessments at a similar platform for the students to perform better. So these are certain positive points which are to be appreciated. Like, it has got many points, but then these are certain which I thought about, that yes, this is very important. Then, as was mentioned earlier, the use of the mother tongue in the schools, like the vernacular language in the school. Now, to this point, I agree and disagree to a certain extent, that if we talk of the CBSE school, or being here in Maharashtra, now I'm a North Indian, I belong to Delhi. Now, I have many children in my school who are who are not from Maharashtra, right? They are from South, they are from Delhi, they are from some other states. uh, Learning the mother tongue or learning the language, regional language, is very important. Okay, we should know, okay, that is our culture. When we learn the language, when we learn about the customs and traditions, that is very important for us, because we get to learn about our country from that. Okay, but then, is it really mandatory? Is it really necessary for the child to learn or to study in that regional language? Now, tomorrow, if I move out from here, this language will not be necessary for me. Okay, then again, the question will be that why am I not knowing that particular regional language? So, what I personally feel, that English and Hindi should be the preferred languages, and the regional language choice should be given. And that is what the CBSE is doing today. Okay, if we look at the curriculum of CBSE, we have till 6th standard, we have got 3 languages, where we have English, Hindi, and Marathi. And then from 6th standard, the child is having a choice. He can opt for Marathi or a Sanskrit, or he can go for some foreign language. So that, I feel, that should be followed still, even under the new education policy. Of course, the regional language is important, but some way out should be really looked ahead for this. Then again, report card changes, like this is something very minor that we have already. This has been implemented. Our report cards are not talking about the marks of the students, we have grades. Okay, but now, after this NEP, we will find that the report cards will be talking about the overall development of the child. Okay, it will talk that how good the child is in academics, in class discussion, with his peers, with the etiquettes, and with the different languages. Okay, so overall development of the child will be considered over here in these report cards, what we say, or we can say just a way where we can understand the overall personality of the child. So these report cards will be talking about the cognitive, psychomotor skills of the children, and will have the assessment not only from his teachers, but also from he himself, and also his peers. So these are certain points uh, which I feel are positive there in this education policy. Another thing is on the cap of the higher education system. That was again very much important. Like that, we know that in India, we do not have everybody coming from a very high class family, and every parent cannot spend lakhs of rupees to educate his child. Although we all think ahead for it, everybody of us as a parent, we want our child to be in the best of the institutes. But then this cap on education or the fees will definitely help us. And with that cap on education, the policy also talks about some social responsibility which is given to these colleges, where the government look ahead that there should be few students who should be given the scholarship also, so that they can be the part of this education system, like being a part of those good or prestigious institutions. So these are certain points which I feel are important, and I really appreciate these points. And we look ahead for the implementation of this education policy, although we use many of these things in our school even today, right? We are using the playway method of learning, we do class discussions, we try to give the overall development of the child, everything is there. And then yes, as this pandemic have taught, I would like to appreciate my parents and teachers both at this time. Like we were not very comfortable using the technology, but then this pandemic have taught us to do that. We were telling our children, don't sit on the mobile, don't sit and play, don't sit on the laptops. We were not allowing them, right? Because that was only the means of entertainment for us. But then today, as a parent, as a teacher, I tell my child, please attend the class, please switch on your camera, I need to see your face. So we have learned that now. Jasvinder Singh sir is giving a broad smile out here.
Ma'am, it's because I do some research and I teach a group of 8 students from a tier 3 city in MP. So
Yes,
my
sir.
only thing to them is that when if we have to teach somebody without looking at them, it becomes very difficult.
Very
So my
difficult.
one thing is that if you want to study with me, the camera should be on, because
Right.
believe me, teachers have realized that how can you teach with your eyes closed? Because if the cameras
True.
are off, your eyes are closed. So that's
Yes.
why that smile and that broad smile, because I face the same thing, and that's an
Yes.
important part.
That's really an important part. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. So, our teachers have really learned to use this, right? They are making beautiful PPTs. They are using like they have really worked hard to make their lessons interactive and impressive so that they can have the attention of the children, right? Of course, we all are missing the classrooms, but as a teacher, we are trying hard that this online education should be fruitful for our little ones. So that is what I want to say about this policy, and we look ahead for its implementation in future. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Big thanks, Vinita ma'am, for sharing these very valuable thoughts. You talked about how the focus of NEP on the preschool segment, to making it more integral part would create a huge impact. You also appreciated Bal Bhavan concept and how it is going to make the desired impact. You also talked about how this NEP is going to tackle various, currently existing socio-economic problems. You also, appreciated many highlights like 10 blacklist days, or you also appreciated no hard separation between science and art subject, and how it is going to empower our students, in terms of choosing their, I would say, occupation, or finding their own solutions. You also believe that this NEP empower our learners with various, like cross-functional skills, and make them more empowered and flexible. You also appreciated the new assessment system called Parak, and how it is going to be useful in setting up right environment for the holistic development. In the end, you also appreciated the new changes in the report card, and you also appreciated the part of the report card where it is using the self-assessment. It is also focusing on the peer assessment. So big thanks, Vinita ma'am, for highlighting these important points from NEP and explaining these points for us. I'll be coming back to you with questions. Thank you, Vinita ma'am. Thank you. Now I would request Indu ma'am, if we can have your ideas, your thoughts.
Good evening once again. I have tried my best to have a better understanding of this policy, but now, as I have seen Vanita ma'am and Kalpana ma'am, eminent educationists, so I might go wrong somewhere. So I request you to correct me wherever I go wrong. And connecting with the Vanita ma'am's last statement with the teachers' acceptability to take this challenge, I would like to say that even leadership role has been changed to some extent. Earlier, maybe sometimes we were just giving the instructions to get them followed by the teachers, but now we are setting examples because the teachers have shown apprehension about the Google form things, like how can we set the papers. So it's us, we have to show them, like, if I can do it, you can also do it. So then this is one thing where leadership role has been switched over. uh, if you look at the history of Indian education, it is really disheartening that nothing has been changed from last 34 years. So this national education policy definitely is a reformative moment, indeed a historic moment, because this is going to take our education system to new heights. I am not feeling ashamed to say that right now the education system which we are following is outdated. So it is the right time that we should start thinking about executing and implementing this policy. If I start talking about even a single clause, it will take a lot of time. So looking into the time constraint in my mind, I'll just talk about the most relevant things. I mean, it's not the most relevant, but from my point of view, I'll take up those points only, although everything is relevant in the policy. The point number one is, while the Right to Education Act 2009 gave children the right to education, school education from classes 1 to 8, NEP added to it 3 years of free primary education, including the role of Anganwadis in formal education. And here I would like to add, this is the most talked about point, if I'm not wrong, because I have checked most of your YouTube videos, the previous 132 sessions, although not all the sessions, but the sessions in which Jammu principals participated. So this is the point which most of them have taken. Numerous studies for decades have shown the importance of learning and exposure in the ages of 0 to 6 and in its impact on child's future. Children who are able to read by the age of 10 usually find it, who are not able to read by the age of time, usually find it challenging to grasp at a higher class. Without foundational learning, children often fail to flourish. To do this, formal education has been changed from age 3 to 8 instead of the prevalent 6 to 14 years. It will definitely bring the age group of 3 to 6 years under school curriculum, which has been recognized globally as the most crucial stage for the development of mental level of a child. So this is one landmark achievement and a positive change. Point number two, although I don't know whether it makes a huge difference, but this attracted my attention, that the name of renaming of Ministry of Human Resource Development to Ministry of Education. Another is the gross enrollment ratio. Before venturing into the education fraternity, when I came across a child who has been dropped out or who is not able to continue the education because of any of the reasons, maybe poverty or maybe any of the reasons, I find it really amazing. Do this actually happen? But when I joined this sector, I came across number of cases that this is actually happening. So at least something is going to be done now on this thing. At least we have given a platform, we have given made a route map for this, that by 2030 the aim is to have 100% gross enrollment ratio in school education. The focus is on the early childhood education and to integrate within the Right to Education Act. Another thing, a dedicated national mission for foundational literacy and numeracy will be there. Right now also, when I see the class 5 child and the teachers coming to me that, ma'am, they are not still able to have a simple division, so what is the fun of promoting them? I mean, they are coming to class 5 and they don't have the basic concepts clear, and we are just promoting them. I guess this is injustice to a child. So it is very evident from annual surveys of education reports is that students up till fifth class also lack mathematical and grammatical skills. So now the focus is on building them. What to talk about national surveys? We see it on day-to-day basis in our schools as well. Point number 5, which I feel is the most debatable point, and Vanita ma'am has also shared this, and even I have, but not a very clear understanding of this point about the medium of instruction. NEP says to the extent possible. This is what I interpreted, that they are saying that to the extent possible or wherever it is possible, the primary education must be given in the mother tongue. Language as a medium of instruction issue says that vernacular education at the primary medium of instruction till grade 5, wherever possible. So, wherever possible is very important because the policy leaves it to the schools or the states to adapt. If they want to continue with English, it is okay. I get there is no fixed thing that you have to curb that. There is no restriction on the same. This is my understanding of the thing, because definitely in my schools, when there is a battalion comes, army area is there, the children are coming from different backgrounds and coming from Jammu. We have a Dogri in the Jammu, but I don't know it. Even I can't speak it. So I guess we'll continue with the English as well as the Hindi thing. And but at the same time, we should not underline this fact that neuroscience says that picking up new language is much easier at a younger age. So if we want to teach English to the children, which is the language on the basis of which India has built its service sector capabilities, it is important to teach English as well. And definitely we should put focus on promoting our regional languages as well. Another thing which captured my attention was the bagless day. I guess the children will be the happier lot. The 10-day bagless period is the most attractive feature of this policy. I feel very sad when I see children coming with heavy bags, although we tell them to pack their bags according to the timetable, but they don't listen. And parents also find it difficult. Rose books nikalni padti hai, so let the books remain in the bag only. So now with the bagless day concept, it's an enrichment activities for students from 6 to 12, providing them hands-on experience in day-to-day life. All students have to participate in a 10 days bagless period sometime during grade 6 to 8, where they intern with local vocational experts such as carpenters, gardeners, potters. And in one of my previous schools, like 3 or 4 years back, they have a very beautiful hut made up of mud, and they used to call the carpenter also. So the things are actually, it's not everything is not new. Few of the things schools are already doing it, but just definitely with this new education policy we have got a roadmap. And the only thing is that, as I said in my introductory remark, that we have to join hands together and make it a huge success. Thank you.
Thank you, Indu ma'am, for sharing these important points from NEP. You shared your assessment that NEP's focus on foundational years is highly laudable, and you also shared the current poor status of numeracy and literacy among many of our learners, and how the focus of NEP in that particular segment is going to create a valuable impact. You also talked about the challenges with the mother tongue concept, and you also encourage that we must encourage regional languages, but should not ignore English as a language. We should encourage English as well simultaneously. So big thanks, Indu ma'am, for sharing these valuable inputs and thoughts from NEP. I'll be coming back to you with questions. Thank you, ma'am. Now I must invite just.
We couldn't get you the last part. If you can repeat. Okay. So we're not able to hear you, but still I understand what you want me to speak. Can you hear me?
Inviting you,
Yeah.
requesting you, can have your ideas.
Okay. See, basically, talking about NEP 2020, everything said and done is great, but certain important points that I want to pick up from the previous presenters and then go on to my point. I would start with Kalpana ma'am when you said that the vocational training is something which is excellent done, it is great done. I would want to put up why this vocational training is important, right? Whether the child chooses that vocation or not is immaterial. What is important is that the child should go and look at how people do and there comes dignity of labor. What lacks in our country is not acknowledging the dignity of labor. We have got the way a person works, that's how we look at him. No, that should not be the case. One.
Right.
Second is, if there is dignity of labor, a student may choose that profession, right? And let me tell you one thing, these professional vocational trainers are better paying than some of the engineering professions. Ask yourself, if you want one CA, you'll get 5 of them. You want to go see one doctor, you'll get 3 of them. But if you want one plumber, you will not get him.
Yes.
And the amount of money he charges, that means they are making money. The only thing is we are not giving them the proper stature or value. So that is one thing, that is why this thing comes in. But there's another angle to that. You see, there was a research done by MIT US. What they said, that they said, okay, let's look at the human body and see which part of the human body uses the brain maximum. And then they redraw, they drew the human body. Okay, and you know which was the biggest part of the human body? Hands. The head was this much, the middle part of this one, the legs were only this much, but the hands were this big, because the hands use the brain maximum. So when a child goes and does something with his hands while doing that vocational experience, whatever, the brain develops better. So we have to understand the usage of hands is the most important thing for our brain to develop better. So that is why this has been brought into this thing. Coming on to my point is, my other point is, Vinita ma'am, you did talk about the agreement or disagreement of the language, and same is the point which Indu ma'am talked about. This is my area of interest and I would really want to put in a lot of things.
Yes.
Indu ma'am, like you said, it is not compulsory for a school to go and teach in that particular local language. It is not compulsory.
Yes.
The government is not saying that, no, you have to do this, but let's look at why do we have to do this? Okay, I understand your point of view that you are not from Jammu area, you come from some other place, and then you do not know Dogri, right? That is going to be there a lot of time. But let's look at the point, the perspective of the child's perspective. See, understand, when we were, see, I come from the language industry. I promote English labs. I work with 3,000 schools only on English. But now I'm talking something different. What I'm saying is that, you know, when we were small, entering the education system, on one side we were acquiring English, and in the same time we were taught our core subjects also in English. When I've not acquired English, I do not know how to comprehend. I do not know how to talk about what I've understood. How do you expect me to acquire those core skills? So at this time, the local language is important. Right now, most teachers come from local areas. You normally, you know, the principals travel from one state to the other. Teachers generally don't. So mostly they would have that thing. But you can also have a mix of the local language and English, right? Because the vocabulary has to be English. So that is something that works in. But there's another point to this. Research has said that up till the age of 8, a child can acquire up to 5 languages.
Yes.
And it is also said that if a child speaks 3 or more languages, the brain works better. So right from the beginning, we should expose them to 3 languages. So this 3 language formula is fantastic. See, one is the local language, one is the foreign language, the other is the what do you call it? The cultural language or the ancient language, right? So now understand, अगर आपने हिंदी में समझा दिया और इंग्लिश भी पढ़ा दिया, एंड आपने एक क्लासिकल लैंग्वेज जिसे कहते हैं संस्कृत ले लिया, तो बच्चा जब स्टार्टिंग में सीखेगा, ऑल 3 लैंग्वेजेस कैन बी एक्वायर्ड. सो वी नीड नॉट सेग्रीगेट देम एज अ लोअर लेवल लैंग्वेज एंड हायर लेवल लैंग्वेज. हम क्या करते थे पहले कि इंग्लिश मीडियम वो टीच इंग्लिश एज हायर लेवल एंड हिंदी एज लोअर लेवल. बट व्हाई? When the child can acquire 3 languages, let all 3 languages come at the same time. And Indians have the distinction of speaking multiple languages at a time. That is why we are more logical. Understand, one sentence you use 3 languages and still make meaning out of it. That's logic. So that is something that we need to work on. And if you say, how do we teach this? This technology. So I'm going to come to the technology, but we use technology to teach English to 1 million students every year. How does this happen?